Today's show is sponsored by our friends at Orca Coolers. And what is cooler than having a Georgia National Championship tumbler? Zeke was all over this. Well, he wasn't until I told him. I actually got him one for his 40th birthday. But they have these tumblers. They're awesome. They're going to keep your drink cold, keep them warm, and you can celebrate a Georgia win. If you use code DADSEASON, they will give you 20% off your order. That is for everything. That is the roto-molded coolers, the tumblers, it's the whiskey barrel tumblers, everything they have at orcacoolers.com. Use code DADSEASON. It's Dad Season all year round, and you will get 20% off your order. Today's show is also sponsored by our friends at Action 24/7. If you want action, get in on the action with Action 24/7. Tennessee's only sportsbook by Tennesseans for Tennesseans. There's so much going on. NBA's going on. You can parlay with the NBA. If you bet $50 on a parlay, it will give you $25 back if it doesn't hit. All sorts of parlays on the NHL this week. There's something going on in Australia this week, except if you're Novak Djokovic. But if you bet $30 on tennis, you'll automatically get a $20 free bet to use during the match. There's table tennis bets again this week, a deposit boost on a Saturday. They moved the typical Friday boost to Saturday in celebration of the Titans divisional round playoff game. And then on Sunday, there's a parlay. You get a risk-free up to $50 single game parlay on the Rams, Bucks, or Bills, Chiefs. And always, if you use code DADS100, it will match up to $800 of your deposit all the way up until the Super Bowl. Check out our friends at action247.com. Zeke, I have a big bone to pick with you.
Ham bone?
No, collarbone, which I think yours is broken right now from your ski trip. But you said, okay, I'm going to go out to Breckenridge. And yeah, I'll take some pictures to give you for social media. This picture you took, the one picture that you sent the whole time, because I had to steal pictures from your story, like your really cool spiky hat that is from 1999. I stole that from your story and then put it on ours. But you took a picture on the porch of the place you were staying at. Half of the cement wall is there, and then you can see a window where you can start to see some trees and snow. The whole purpose of being in Breckenridge is there's mountains, there's snow, there's trees, and you gave me 5 bottles spaced out weirdly behind a cement wall.
Well, there was lighting issues. There wasn't enough space on the rail to put them without
hold one up with your hand. You had to will it. Hold it up with your hand and get a mountain.
Well, then some of them actually got froze to the porch. The bottom of the bottle. No glass broke. No booze was lost. But literally my buddy's like, I think that thing's kind of froze right there. I'm like, I mean, the booze is froze? Like, it's a high enough alcohol percent where it shouldn't freeze. He's like, no, I can't get the damn bottle off of the concrete. It is stuck.
And I had to tell you, I love your mom. I love her very much. But your mom came to your defense. So I posted this on social media. I took the picture that you gave me and I said, I asked Zeke for pictures from Breckenridge, and this is what he gave me. And your mom wrote back, well, the purpose was to see snow, and there technically was snow in the picture. And I took everything, because Zeke's mom is the nicest woman in the whole entire world. It took everything I could to not write back. You know, we had snow in Nashville all last week, right? Hello, everyone. My name is John Edwards. With me, as always, is Zeke Baker, and together we make the Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, thank you for making us part of your day. We are going into 2022, and I firmly believe that Zeke will not have access to social media this year for Dad's Drinking Bourbon based off of his performance in week 1. Who did have a great performance, though, were those Georgia Bulldogs.
How about them dogs, baby? That's all I got to say.
How long was it again? Was it 88?
80. 41 bleep years. But we got there.
Well, congratulations for getting there. You are a little worse for wear. I did not really go into this deep in our cold open, but you had an injury. You want to tell everyone what happened?
Very simply, the bindings on my skis were a little too loose. Fresh powder came down the first day. Turns got tough. A couple of turns I came out of or didn't come out of, however you want to look at it. And at some point, my left shoulder's pretty darn bruised, but we're getting by.
So did you pizza when you should have French fried in that Nar Pow Pow?
No, neither. It was just a turn. And like literally my heel came out of the boot. So then I spun around and flopped on my back and like hit my head. It was so bad. I finally found my way to a bus stop and I dropped a pin and I just said, just come pick me up. And he says, where are you? I said, I sent you a damn pin. Just come pick me up. He's like, I am defeated right now.
He's like, this isn't like Uber. You can't drop a pin on a mountain and say, come get me.
I got picked up. That's all you need to know.
Well, we're glad you're back. I know what our listeners are going to say. I should have come back at you harder on this, just like they said I should have come back at you harder on your whole thing with Aunt May, which is a conversation for another day. I will just tell the listeners that we have a guest, so I am not going to go deep into this, but we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Wally Dant, and then we have salesman extraordinaire. He has been on this show before. He went into the transfer portal and he went over to Monk's Road. That is Mr. Adam Zinser. So welcome both of you to Dad's Drinking Bourbon.
Hey, thank you. We're happy to be here.
Good to be back.
Both of you have better voices than both of us. Just listening to you two, like, there needs to be a Monk's Road podcast because Adam has that voice already. Everybody knows that. But Wally, your voice is pretty damn good.
Maybe it's because I'm sick or something like that. I got the Rona. I don't know. Something.
I'm glad you told us that while we're all sitting within.
I thought I'd share a couple of drinks with you.
He's like, you know what you could take home? Not just the bottles, but you could take home some Rona with you, too.
That's right. Something special.
Alcohol.
Special. Yeah, everybody wants to know what you got special. I got it for you.
This is a beautiful thing about a podcast. So what my associate told me, and this was cut out, it was taken while he was correcting me for being very, very wrong. It is not Monk's Road Distillery. It is Log Still Distillery, and the brand is Monk's Road within Log Still. Apologies.
That's okay.
I was so excited to actually be around a person that I messed everything up.
It's quite all right. What matters at the end of the day is that you like the juice that's inside the bottle.
Well, we will find that out as we sit here. You brought a dry gin, a barrel finished gin, and then there's some bourbon on the table as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's our lineup for right now. We've got some more stuff coming out in the not too near future.
I know that Log Still, y'all like Jeeps, but besides your love for Jeeps and making sure that all of your staff is outfitted in a Jeep, why did you start a distillery? Tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into the game? What made you decide to do this now?
My family has been in that bourbon making business for, I'm a sixth generation, so for 5 generations before me. So back in the early 1830s, we began distilling in our family bourbon whiskey. Now, I am sure it was moonshine, right? Just like everybody does in Kentucky at some point in time, and eventually turned into a product that our family had for, until the early 1940s when we sold a couple of distilleries at that time, back in the early 40s for the Dant family. And so, my grandfather was in the business. My great-grandfather was in the business. We actually own my great-grandfather's distillery now. So for us and for me, it was a way of coming back and bringing our name back into prominence, back into the bourbon business again. And we all talked about it, when we were growing up, amongst cousins and friends about, our name and being back in that business again. And through some, real luck, success I've had on really the healthcare business, I was able to say, look, this is where we're gonna jump back into it again and do it back on our own homestead.
I know it's a touchy subject and we don't necessarily need to go negative with anything, but is it tough for all you people out there? JW Dant is an amazing bourbon. It's one of my favorite ones to go get because you can't get it down here, but It's a great drinker at a great price. Is it tough seeing your family's name out there without, the family having ownership of it?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, we look at it a couple different ways, right? One, Heaven Hill owns the brand today, and, and they bought it in 1993. And, my grandfather prior to that worked for the company that owned J.W. Dant. And so, it was a company called Shenley. And Shenley had it for probably almost about 40 years or so. And, they made I.W. Harper. They made a number of different brands, Ancient Age. They owned the old Buffalo Trace Distillery. So it was a part of a bigger company and a bigger conglomeration of folks. What I can say about, Heaven Hill owning that product today is that, we look at it and think, hey, from a family perspective, our name is still on a bottle, right? The Dant name is still on a bottle. I've told Max Shapira before that, thank you for saving that brand and still having that brand out there. Having said that, we're forging our own road here, tongue-in-cheek, Monk's Road, for our family now. And so that's really what we're doing with our distillery is really kind of focusing in on, making sure we pay homage to the past, certainly, but making sure that as we move forward as an organization and as a family that, we forge our own path. And so we have our bourbons, gins, we're doing Tennessee whiskey in the future as well. And so one, we're out to have fun, honor our family, and, do things the right way, I think.
But between us, just friends sitting around here, say like 5-10 years passes, y'all have really built the distillery up, and Max decides to unload the brand. You gonna pick it up?
If they ever wanted to have a conversation, I'd certainly welcome the conversation.
I'm sure Max listens. I'm kidding. He's been on the show, but I'm sure he doesn't listen. Like, I can't wait for the next episode of Dad's Drinking Bourbon. So your secret is safe with us. It's also good to know that this is a family. You luckily have been in healthcare. You've worked and done a very good job with that so that you can actually go and open a distillery. But it sounds like your family is very supportive of it, and everybody's kind of involved in some way, or is it mostly just you doing the heavy lifting?
So we've got a big family, right? So the Dants were prolific Catholics, and so there are a ton of them all over the place.
Hey, it's okay. My dad's one of 9. I get it.
Right. And so I've got a couple of cousins that are in this with me, Charles and Lynn. Both he and she, she is really the head distiller for the company. She's a chemical engineer and a Wharton MBA, so she's vastly smarter than I am. And Charles, he grew up exactly where our distillery is, and so he's our VP of operations, and so together with them, we're kind of forging that path, and we get a lot of help we have a Dant page on Facebook that has, 1,500 family members. I have more cousins than I ever thought I did once we began this, but it's great to be able to have connections out there. And I think everybody that's grown up in our family is really proud of our heritage and certainly what we're doing.
So Zeke and I are your cousin. I don't know if you knew this. You got to add us to the Facebook page.
I can do that.
We're both, we want the inside track of what's going on, Dant. That's awesome to have that. I'm sure that all of those 1,500 people, if you would ask, are happy to come be taste testers. When did you actually start Log Still? You all have done enough work there. I mean, I do want to talk about KBF and all that because y'all had a concert while other people were doing other stuff. I mean, you guys are big enough now that you're having a concert at your distillery. It's a good time. It sounds like from everything you said, you even said it earlier that you want to have fun. I mean, that is right in line with it. So tell me a little bit about the distillery.
So outside of my healthcare work that I've done here in Nashville for almost 25 or so years, on the side, right, much like what you guys do on the side, I had a retail store. I had a wine and spirits retail store in Cool Springs. It was at the Sam's Club. We had that from 2006 through 2011. And you could see writing on the wall about wine coming into grocery stores here in Tennessee. And we said, hey, really, you learn real quickly the power is in the distribution side, right? And so we said, well, why don't we start a distribution company? We actually got with another distributor, a beer distributor. I don't know if you know Kurt Strickmaker or not, with Bounty Beverage. And at the time, everybody had the low gravity license and the high gravity license on the distribution end, right? And so they had to have the high gravity in order to sell wine, spirits, and high gravity beer. And he knew everything about beer, didn't know a whole lot about wine and spirits. And we said, we do, let's help build that, right? And so we went in with Kurt on his license, which was called Bonus Beverage. And Bonus Bev, we eventually bought once wine and grocery stores went in. There was a change in the distribution licensing side here in Tennessee. And so we were able to kind of split the company in half. He got the beer and we got the wine and spirits. And, from there, we had a little distribution company here in Tennessee competing against Lipman and all of the other, all the Donnellys and all of those guys here in Tennessee. And Tennessee's a franchise state, so nobody's leaving. Effectively, once you've signed a brand, nobody leaves, right? And so then we're scrambling, not on the wine side, because wine is it's getting less so, but at that time anyway, a lot of family-owned businesses. You can find wineries that you can represent and do really well. And we really did well in particular on the on-premise side with wines. But the spirit side, you had to find who was the up-and-comer that wanted to be in Tennessee, right?
And there wasn't a million NDPs at the time when you were doing it that were popping up like, I'm going to start a whiskey brand today.
Right. So, ultimately for Bonus Bev, we represented Rabbit Hole, right, was our Kentucky bourbon. And so Cave came with us back in 2017, somewhere in that time frame, 2018 to 17, I think it was. It wasn't and I started my career at Brown-Forman. And so I knew a lot about the spirits business. I can't say there was a lot of depth out there, but at least I understood what the heck what it was all about. And never having really produced our own before, but I knew steps, right? Steps. You figure out steps, and so in 2018, me and my partner in that business formed Log Still Distilling, and it was going to be a non-spirits producing kind of company, right? Where we'd just have brands out there that we could then have as a separate company that we could represent through the distribution company, right? So that was the original thought process behind it. And so we went out and we bought some Tennessee whiskey barrels, right? That was our first foray into this thing. And thinking that we would then have our own brand, and that it would be represented under from a different company perspective, but then we'd have it represented under the Bonus Bev distribution side. Because there's not many at the time anyway, not many Tennessee whiskey companies, right? So you just had a few fledglings that were just getting started, and some of them I certainly knew, but, some of them, because of relationships that they'd already had, they were already taken. And so you're kind of left with, well, if I want to be a Tennessee distribution company and I don't have a Tennessee whiskey to be able to offer to somebody, right? You begin to go through all those things. And so that was our first foray into the spirits supply business, right? So quickly, my healthcare companies were doing really well, knock on wood. And in 2018, the end of 2018, I just said to my partner in that business, I said, hey, I really, really want to get our family back into the distilling business again. Cave from Rabbit Hole kind of put that notion in my head when we were having dinner one night down here in Nashville. And he goes, Wally, you got half the story is a story, right? Half of it is having a story and being able to talk about it. He says you've already got that. You've got the whole family story that, quite frankly, he didn't. Right? Because, he's an immigrant Iranian. But look what he's done with that brand. And it's a lot of hard work, right? And not saying that this isn't a lot of hard work, but he goes, you got the story. Why don't you? Right? And so that little thing in my head kept going around and around. And I said, well, hell, why don't I, right? I certainly have the means to be able to do something like this, so why not get our family back into it again? And so that really kind of set us off on the path. 2019, I bought the old distillery through a land auction, bought the surrounding land that was there 2 weeks later, and then we embarked on the whole build a destination place. You guys people ask, well, why is it going to be any different from any other distillery? And so we began to think about how do you get people involved and make them come back again, right? It's easy to go, hey, I'm on the Bourbon Trail or the Craft Tour Trail. I'm going to go here. I'm going to get my little chip and away I go, right? And I'll go to the next one and do the same thing. And then they may come back or they may say, well, I've done that already. I've checked my box and so we had to figure out, because we are out, much like Maker's Mark, we're out in the middle of nowhere, right? And Maker's Mark does a fantastic job in their customer experience. And so, we had to say, how can we make our customer experience a really great experience for people to come out to again? I've lived here in Nashville since 99. Yeah, 99. It's been a long time. But, one of the things that I think people love about Nashville is you can have a great experience and not spend a whole lot of money, right, having that great experience. Like going to bars and things like that, right? From an entertainment perspective.
I'm just saying, I have watched the price of beer and an old fashioned. Like, I got an old fashioned out in downtown a couple months ago. $20 for a damn old fashioned. Like,
what'd you put in it?
Bourbon. Doesn't even matter. The well bourbon could be $20.
Well, I certainly Nashville, it's changing, right? But when we were here in the early days, I mean, there was free entertainment. Anywhere you walked, I mean, the quality of music and entertainment here.
If you want to see music, it's free.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's still no cover. I mean, that was always the biggest thing when I moved here. Like, I had buddies like, oh, somebody tries to charge you a cover. You tell them to kick rocks and we're on to the next. Like, no way, no how.
Right.
And at least we still have that staple.
I mean, you're 100% right. It's just not as cheap as it used to be.
No. I mean, well, hell, you see what people spend per night on a hotel room here now, right? I mean, my God. And I wish they would do that at my B&Bs up in Kentucky. But, having said that, we said, how can we bring that up to our neck of the woods, right? So the amphitheater was born out of that, our 2,000-seat amphitheater. And our bed and breakfast that we have up there. So you want to give your guests a place to come, stay, enjoy music, enjoy, great spirits and a great time. And so that was all kind of born out of that. And that's what we did as a company as we embarked on this whole adventure.
And I hate this term. I think you probably know what I'm going to say, but all the people up in Bardstown are talking about the Napification of Bardstown. I hate that word. I can't stand that word. Bourbon people and wine people, yes, there's some overlap, but the majority of bourbon people do feel like Napa is snooty. And I think it's the wrong word, but I understand the concept, right? Like, the concept is correct, that tourism and destination, and there needs to be experiences around bourbon that was not there previously. There's only so many stills and fermenters and warehouses you could see. Like, grizzled veterans like Zeke and I, when we go do a barrel pick, they're like, do you want a tour? I'm like, no, I know what a still looks like, but thank you. Like, and it gets to that point where you're not being disrespectful, but it's like, yeah, I know. Right. It looks great.
Right. That's what we purposely tried to avoid. Now, it's not that we're not going to give a tour and people aren't going to see our fermenting tanks.
I hope you don't mind. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. It's been too long. We haven't drank anything.
Yeah, let's pour some. Let's go.
But keep going on.
So it wasn't like we weren't going to have that piece of the tour, but you need to deliver a memory, right? A good memory. Because when people have good memories, then they go, hey, I want to come back. And so that's what we've tried to do with the distillery, with our Dant Crossing campus, is really try to develop a memory that says, hey, I had a great time, not only with my friends, but with my family. And so, we've got a 12-acre fishing lake out there. We've got docks that are out on that lake. We've got 5 B&Bs that are in and around our campus. And then we've got the music side of that. And then we've got the train depot, right? So you can take a train to the distillery or eat at our 200-seat restaurant.
I was going to say, how's the food? The big guy has to ask about the food.
Yeah. So the restaurant is going up as we speak. We have, and we will hopefully soon announce who we've hired as our executive chef. He's out of Louisville. He's extremely well known. We're more than blessed to be able to get him as a part of our company.
Can we take a guess and you blink one yes and twice if no?
You know, it's a podcast. They can't see him blink.
I know. That's the thing. So we'd know the answer, but
I definitely like the word campus, and it's one of those terms that was naive to me a few years back when people would talk about, distilleries or their grounds or whatever, and they'd say campus. And I wouldn't say it rubbed me the wrong way. It just kind of was like a unique term that I couldn't really resonate to. But I think now that you see more places offering a full experience, being a destination, offering more than, like you say, just the run-of-the-mill tour. You're here for an hour or two, hit the gift shop. All right, been there, seen it. Yeah, it was cool. Might go back, might not, don't know.
Right.
But I think that term definitely resonates so much more now as you see places, working on the branding and facilitating things that, truly encompass a day trip or a full weekend, or again, just fundamentally a sound experience that gives you memories and gives you a fun time. Obviously, we could all go and have a drink or a cocktail or whatever at any distillery, campus, whatever. But it's the other things that when you bundle it all in, that's where you're like, all right, that was a really damn good time.
Right.
And it wasn't about just having a few pours or this and that. It was everything factored in together. And then when you all bundle it in, like, all right, yeah, like this resonates. It gets it. I guess almost like if you're trying to cook spaghetti, noodles got to stick to the wall when it's done. All right, did it stick? Is the memory there? Did it hold?
Did it hold?
All right, we're good.
That's right. That's right. And we've referred to that from the very beginning before we named our campus Dant Crossing. And we wanted it. You went to college. You've been to colleges, right? Of course, you're a Georgia fan. And when
I wouldn't necessarily call that a college.
Well, that's a campus for sure.
I mean, I think they get certificates there, but I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is I graduated high school in Georgia, right? So I graduated from Roswell High School, and this was 1981. I lost a lot of money in the 1981 championship game, right? Because it was the 80 season, but it was 1981 to all of my buddies that were Georgia fans because I was a big Notre Dame fan.
Oof.
And still am to this day.
It had to have been right after Rudy. What was he, 78?
Yeah.
So
yeah. It was a close game. Actually, it was a good game. While I love people in Alabama, my son-in-law is from Alabama. I was really happy not to see Alabama win last night. So
it was a great game. I mean, all the way to the end, that's all you can ask for.
I guess I was happy to see Zeke happy, I guess. I mean, I was more happier. So my cousins graduated from UGA, so I was happy for them. Part of me still wanted to see Zeke upset as much as I didn't want to see Alabama win.
yeah.
I just wanted to see Zeke upset. But like every other Georgia fan, I wanted them to win for them.
Yeah.
I just wanted Zeke to be mad somehow.
I mean, it was probably going to happen some way. Don't worry. Arm still hurts.
That's right.
So going back to the restaurant before Zeke rudely interrupted us being amazed at the word campus, what type of food are you going to have there? Have you thought about the menu? Is it more of a farm to table thing? Or
That's what we've talked about, is having farm to table. So, the things that we've tried to do and focus on just from a values perspective for our company, right, is, and I have a little saying there at the distillery where we talk about God, family, community, and bourbon. And it's in that order. And so you're right with God, you take care of your family, you take care of that community. And so what we've tried to do with everything that we're doing around our place is to make sure that the community that surrounds us, Nelson County, Marion County, and the other counties that are right there, that we are the ones that are trying to give back to the community. So trying to keep our money there is really important for us. So make sure you hire local contractors that can help build the campus, work with local farmers, to do farm to table as best as we possibly can to source everything that we have right there in the local community. That's what we're trying to do with our community partnership. And if you do all of those things right, then ultimately your bourbon is going to be. We feel our bourbon's going to be right.
Can I make one suggestion? Unsolicited advice. So I know Starlight Distillery has some great ice cream over at
right, Huber's.
Yeah.
Right?
Just saying, I think a very attractive thing in Log Still would be to have a good ice cream shop to go with that restaurant. If I was just throwing something out there, I mean, that's how you get the families to go say what's up.
Right. And little bouncy houses too. We did that for the amphitheater a few different times. So funny you mentioned that. We actually had a local ice cream shop in Elizabethtown, or they call it E-Town up there.
Yep.
Come and actually take our Monks Road bourbon, mix it in with, I think it was almost like a pecan praline ice cream, maybe a little caramel in there. And I'm telling you what, that was damn good stuff.
So we have some friends from Old Forge. They're out in Pigeon Forge, and there is a candy shop that is literally, there's the old mill, there's Old Forge, and then there's the candy shop. They'll take flavors from the candy shop to make moonshine, and then the candy shop will make ice cream based off of some of the stuff that they have, like not just the moonshine, but the whiskey as well. I know Hattie Jane's here in town has a Jack Daniel's ice cream that is awesome. Yeah. So there's a lot of partnership opportunity there for Log Still. And I mean, think about like the name Log Still. I think maybe you could get some pretzels in there with some chocolate, some other stuff going on. Like I think,
you know what? I just start thinking back to the Caddyshack scene, right? Is it Caddyshack? You know, boys, come on. It's Caddyshack.
Where he goes, can I go swimming in your pool?
Where the baby Ruth is floating in the pool.
Oh. That's definitely one type of Log Still.
Yeah.
You know.
I just laugh at
I don't
John.
know. And I haven't even had a damn drink yet.
Yeah. John's completely deviated from anything pertaining to booze to simply ice cream, food, etc.
Sometimes,
and he's as deep as he can be in the conversation, too.
Sometimes I say things knowing that I'm trying to elicit a reaction from Zeke, and the fact that I'm purposely looking at you while saying this dead straight face. Uh-huh. Sometimes I just want to get a reaction from the big guy over there and get him in the conversation.
How you gonna call me the big guy? You're the one talking about food.
You're the one that's taller, hence bigger.
Depends on how you define big.
I mean, pretty sure them big and wide shops aren't based on height.
Sometimes they are.
Big and wide. I'm big and tall. I don't know what big and wide is.
You might be coincidentally tall, but you're not there for the height.
I mean, those NBA players, if they need an extra long, they're not going to Macy's to do it. They're going to Casual Male Big and Tall.
No, the NBA, they're paying somebody for a custom suit. Get out of here.
Now that we have sufficiently deviated from this.
Fully off the rails.
Yeah.
We know that we have this dry gin. It is 86 proof. The barrel finished gin is 93 proof. Tell me a little bit about this 5th District series. I think it is more of a special addition to everything y'all have. Adam, you're the man. Tell me about these whiskeys. Give me the pitch.
Got to let the sleazy salesman step in every now and then and do the little pitch here. And real quick, jumping back to Zeke's obsession with the word campus. You know, you mentioned early on that I went through the transfer portal and jumped from one supplier to another a few different times. And ultimately, what sold me being the salesman, what sold me though was experiencing the campus at Dant Crossing. And so a little geography lesson. We're about 20 miles south of Bardstown, just outside. It's Gethsemane, Kentucky. But Dant Crossing, it's a whole bourbon experience. You mentioned the napification. Yeah, don't necessarily love equating to that, but it is more than just a distillery experience. And that's ultimately what led me to want to join this team. And I mentioned before, you know, Wally's the visionary, and I'm tasked with selling his vision here in Tennessee. And they sold me just by seeing the whole area up there. First, you've got the tasting room, which is it's a beautiful facility, centered around this Vendome copper still. The proof is in the liquid. They're making great cocktails in there with our various products. Also, it's a full service bar, Thursday, Friday, Saturday after 4 o'clock. Then beyond that, they've got the Amp, which is the amphitheater, as Wally mentioned, 2,000-person amphitheater. During the concert season this past year, had big acts like Little Big Town, and then some fun old school acts like Kansas and Cheap Trick, and sold out shows. A lot of fun open air amphitheater with beautiful countryside in the background. Also, of course, right there is the tasting room, so you can get some samples and then step outside in the patio and enjoy a concert. And then, as you mentioned, bed and breakfast. There's multiple bed and breakfasts on site that are just beautiful, restored, old classic homes. Coming up is the Legacy, which is an event center that'll be opening up where we can host up to like 400-person weddings. We've already got, I think, 12 weddings already booked for wedding season in 2022. It's just a beautiful facility. Later on, coming up this year, the distillery itself, which is under construction, will open. As Wally mentioned, the restaurant, that will open in the coming months, as well as Rick House is going up. It's a whole ground-up experience that you don't see a lot of producers do. Like we mentioned before, NDPs, they can feel kind of nebulous, right? It's a label, but you don't know where the hell it's coming from, where the juice is coming from, who owns it, who makes it. It's very obvious who this is, what they're doing, what the vision is. And it's something that I think is very unique to Kentucky. That being said, you asked specifically about the products here in front of us. You want me to start with the bourbon or the gin?
Let's start off with this sourced 5th District series right here. Tell us a little bit about this whiskey and the bourbon and all the good stuff about it.
Sure thing. Yeah, as you mentioned, it is sourced. We're open about that. Not a problem. Long term, we're going to be distilling all of our own liquid, but hey, you got to start somewhere. So this is out of Kentucky. It's out of Bardstown. I can tell you that. It's a 6-year-old single barrel, 100 proof product. And it's 75 corn, 21 rye, 4 malted barley. Now you're going to try to think about all the different mash bills and try to guess who distilled that for us. But
I won't, but John will. He knows that. I just always ask him.
He does ask me, but I won't put you on the spot, even though you said you were going to tell me everything about this on this podcast right now. You told me beforehand.
I'm going to plead the fifth and go to the lawyers on that one with who signed the NDAs and whatnot.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He did not say that.
I can tell you it's not Heaven Hill.
I know it's not Heaven Hill.
There you go.
We can tell you it's not Indiana. It is Kentucky.
It is an Indiana mash bill, though.
It is not Indiana, though.
No, but the mash bill is typically the low rye mash bill for MGP.
Right.
That has been reproduced by a different distillery that we're just going to have to guess what it is. I say that for Zeke because he always wonders about mash bills. That would be the low rye mash bill for MGP.
I mean, I don't give a shit as long as it tastes good. Let's be honest.
I know you don't, but I'm trying to educate you.
It's the most important part.
For 6 years, I have been trying to educate you on a little bit of stuff.
And I just go back to, well, did it taste good or not? All right, keep rolling.
Do you have like an automatic air freshener that shoots stuff every once in a while?
Yeah, it's over there under the TV.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Every once in a while, I get this whiff of vanilla.
No, I'm not wearing perfume.
And I'm like,
I didn't fart.
It smells like vanilla. It sure as hell didn't.
I'm like, is Zeke like spraying Lysol behind me when I'm looking at you?
The injured skier hobbles across the room, limping and holding his injured shoulder to turn off his automatic air freshener.
I love that he still wears bell bottoms like he's in Almost Famous.
Look, I have to admit, see, I've got mine too, my friend.
They're not bell bottoms.
Not
I just don't wear skinny jeans.
You got a lot of flair.
They're boot cut.
Exactly.
He's got that high flare boot cut. He's working, his flare is on fleek.
I mean, there's a difference sometimes when your thigh diameter yields you with what would be perceived as a boot cut, but with you, it's just straight leg.
Fair enough. I mean, I work very hard on my legs. Thank you for noticing.
Do we need to step out for a minute, give you guys a moment, or?
Let's talk about this gin here. So it's 86 proof. Are you all making the gin already, or is that something that has to be sourced too?
So we work with a supplier on that, but the botanical mix is something that we came up with, and so again, through my bonus bev experience, met those suppliers. They actually pitched us on some stuff back when we were, on the distribution company, and so we met with them. They're out of Seattle, and we produced this with them. Yeah, we're pretty proud of the botanical mix that we came up with on this gin in particular, and the two gins have two different botanical mixes, right? So they're not the same. We didn't take that same juice that we're using in that dry gin and throw it into a barrel and say, okay, voila. We really kind of had a good thought process around what we thought would be a good barrel finished gin, and so that botanical mix that we used in there is quite different than the one we use in the dry gin.
All right. It's interesting. I like the train of thought for sure.
Well, when you think about that barrel and what that's potentially going to do to that gin product, and what we wanted from a finish perspective, it contains cranberries. That botanical mix does. And
the barrel or the dry?
The barrel finished. The dry gin I wanted a balance between the juniper and some fruit notes. Because sometimes your dry gins, a lot of people can get really turned off by a dry gin because of the over juniper notes that you can get. And so we really wanted a balance there. I wanted a really everyday, what I call an everyday sipper in that dry gin. And I felt I could do that better through some citrus. And so we've got lemon zest, we've got orange zest, we've actually got some watermelon rind in there. Really does a good job in balancing it. And so that is why we produce that dry gin. Is I really wanted an everyday, put it over ice, sit on your front porch, and go to town on it. The barrel finished gin, I approached it from a different perspective. I said, look, there are going to be people out there that do not like gin. There's a lot of people that just don't like gin because of they think that's overly juniper. They don't like the quote unquote piney notes that they get out of it, right? I mean,
oh yeah, I'm with you.
You hear that a lot. And so, I drank it when I was 17 years old and I got sicker than a dog. I just never want to approach it again. We did the barrel finished to really introduce those people that say, I do not like gin. And so we said, if you don't like gin, then try our barrel finished gin. So it was a way for us to move bourbon drinkers that are bourbon drinkers, not gin drinkers, into a category that they go, oh, wow, I've not had a gin like that. And so that was why we barrel finished it. We barrel finished it in our wheated bourbon barrels because I didn't want those rye notes potentially coming in there and giving it a different spice note to it. And so we did it with that wheated bourbon barrel of ours. And then we tasted it kind of every month to see when were what I call the edges of the juniper going to fall off. And really at about 6 months is when that fall off happens, at least on our product anywhere, where you see that juniper hard note that you usually get. And while you still taste juniper in this, it kind of falls off really quickly. You begin to get those vanilla nutmeg notes that come through, again, mostly from that bourbon barrel. That's really infusing that, some vanilla in there. And so we really wanted that for non-gin drinkers, right, to introduce them into a category.
What I really like about this one, I don't know what Zeke, we both dabble into gin. Zeke probably dabbles more than I do, but that barrel finished gin, it almost took on the qualities of a cranberry for me, where the first sip, it's almost like the shell. Mm-hmm. And then once you break through the shell, there's a tremendous amount of fruit that hits mid-palate to the back palate. Yeah. So I almost feel it's like, when you have a grape or a cranberry, because you said they're infused with cranberry, it's almost like the juice inside, you got to get past that shell and then it all comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, we have been really pleased with how well this has been taken up by our guests. I mean, we have, like up in Kentucky, from a distribution perspective, you work with your distributors, you say, okay, here's what our projections are. They'll work with you on what they think that's going to sell. Yeah, we don't, originally, you don't see a whole lot of barrel finished gins out there. Maybe the cocktail crowd will pick it up in the on-premise side. We'll probably sell maybe 50 cases. We sold 50 cases in 45 days, right? It just went out the door, and then we're sitting there saying, oh, shit, right? Because then it takes 6 months for this shit to age, right? And we thought...
Placing a phone call, right. We need more.
Right. Oh, it was one of those... It was one of those...
Speed up time?
Right. You can't... We tried everything. We went through the tasting profiles every month, saying, "Okay, what do we?" And 6 months is it, and we said, "All right, well, we're not going to compromise." And
I hope you made more than 50 cases.
We have this time, yeah. So
it's interesting
knock
too.
on wood, we won't have any issues.
Obviously, it's a bourbon or whiskey show predominantly, but in the realm of gin, I think that's probably one of the most unexplored or like revisited areas for spirits. Because, I mean, like you said, I mean, I grew up, my dad was a gin guy. I never had to worry about drinking when I was a kid because I wasn't going to touch that shit one time. And this is awful. Like, never again. If this is what alcohol is, I'm good. Keep it away.
Right.
But now you see folks starting to dabble with it, revisit. Like I said, put different botanicals in there, explore different profiles that you can extrapolate and the different things you can put in there together that are going to, synergize to give you that final product. I think it's maybe one of the most unexplored areas that people just aren't tapping or getting into for the time being.
And for us, I mean, the other side of why we did gins, one, I like them, right? So that's why. That was certainly a reason why. But the other reason is you can have fun with it. You can work that gin basket to death and say, okay, well, hey, let's go out and go grab some berries from the front yard, right? Then dry them out and throw them in there and see what it does. And so that's the cool thing about gins, as opposed to, Fred Minnick talks about, vodka sucks all the time, as opposed to a vodka, right? Where it's, okay, how many times have I distilled that vodka, right? Well, all right. What else? Okay, it's the grains that go into it. Okay, but what's it taste like? Well, there ain't a whole lot of taste to a vodka, right?
Whatever you mixed it with,
right? Yeah. Exactly. And so that's why we went after gin. We just said, look, and it doesn't require a whole lot of aging, right? As opposed to bourbon, so you can turn around and sell it fairly quickly, just like you can a vodka. You can have fun with it. That's really what we wanted to do. So in the new distillery itself, in the tasting room, we've got a gin basket that hangs on our still right now, but we're going to have, 150-gallon pot still which is nothing but a gin still that'll be in the distillery all by itself. So we won't run our bourbons in the, our column still, and we'll be running through that. But our gin still will have separate and distinct and be able to have, Lynn's going to have fun with it.
I think one of the things, at least for me, and I think Zeke would feel the same way, is we love when thought goes into things, especially with a brand that's up and coming. What are you actually thinking about when you make the decisions that you do? And both of these gins, I could tell that you put a tremendous amount of time and effort and thought into. And I love that. You can tell, no matter what story they tell you, if they just were like, oh yeah, we picked botanicals and we threw it in because that's what everybody else does and we needed to make some money. But it sounds like this is kind of a little bit of a pet project for you, and I love that.
It really is. I mean, for us, trying to develop something that we thought would be somewhat unique in the marketplace and have it at Adam, I don't know what our price points are on these gins on a retail basis. But we're not trying to be overly crafty with our pricing, right? So we're saying, look, for a great gin product, we're charging, 20 something, 25.
This is where things get fun. We ask the guys who tried it, hey, what do you think? And this is a risky proposition here. I could totally be wrecking myself on this. But I hear, Zeke, you like gin a little bit more than maybe John here or myself even. But what are your thoughts on them?
I like non-traditional. And we've kind of always...
We know that about you.
Towed that road of simply like, hey, put something neat and fun in there. Don't make it taste like Pine Sol. And like Wally was saying, I mean, when you have all these different things you can utilize and put in there to see what comes out of it, the world is your oyster.
Right.
Well, why not go for it and see what you can get out of it? Like, we all know what Bombay is going to taste like, or countless other gins or vodkas. And they're all within the same, to me, like 5% of a profile difference. And if you want to drink that, that's fine. But pushing the boundaries and saying, well, actually, here's what you can do with this spirit. To me, it's like the people that when you do a barrel finished bourbon, whiskey, whatever you want to call it, it still takes longer time. You still don't really know. At the end of the day, you still got to try and sell it because, well, hell, you're invested in it.
Right.
But when you're doing clear spirits and you can tinker with it on a smaller scale, almost immediately know what you're dealing with. I mean, I think you just be, a kid in the candy store, basically, but with spirits, because you're going to, this gave me this one accent that was really good. Mm-hmm. Now I moved it here. But both these, I'm a big fan of. Certainly appreciate even taking the notion to be like, all right, we're going to barrel age this set of it. Well, what's that going to do? Not just counting on the barrel to influence it in a way, but I guess I would almost say like, you're counterbalancing. Like, well, here's what the barrel's going to do, but here's what we're going to do ahead of that. And at the end of the day, well, now look what we have. I mean, that's substantial to me. Like I like the thought process, like the flavors in it, and just the way it all comes out.
Are you running for politics anytime soon?
I didn't really talk much while I was skiing. I just listened to music and drink.
Well, I'm just saying he asked how much do you think that these go for?
Oh.
And you just gave a very long answer that I think lulled everybody to sleep, but didn't actually answer the question.
We all know
That's typical. I said a lot, but I said nothing at all.
Exactly.
We know whose voice lulls people to sleep around here, and it ain't this one.
Oh, a lot of people love your voice to go to sleep.
I don't know. I don't even know what it generally costs. I mean, $20-$30. I don't know.
No, that's fair. And there's a lot of gin out there that's, a lot of rot gut that's super cheap and a lot of honestly really overpriced gins. You're looking at on the dry gin here. There's a range of prices that varies $5-$6. You're looking probably about $27.99. Most places will have it at, and about $30 or so on the barrel finished gin. That's sort of the mid price point there. So you won't ever see either one of them over $35, but it's a nice approachable price point for a new boutique gin.
I was going to say, you have to look at too. I mean, it's like when somebody asked me what a good whiskey should cost anymore. Shit. I mean, a week ago, I thought this was a good price, whatever that may be, 40, 45, 50. Been a few weeks. Apparently the needles move. 55 now for 90 proof, decent bourbon. I mean, like, who knows? I mean, if you enjoy what you're consuming, that to me is ultimately what you fall back on.
I know where things would get priced for me, but I would just say Wally knows as the distributor how the needle can move that $5 to $10 either way because, say somebody buys in bulk, distro has a little deal. If you buy 10 cases of this, then we'll knock $5 off the price. Like, that's how that stuff works. Our listeners understand there is a window. Even though MSRP is one thing, they buy a good deal from distro. Maybe that MSRP is going to go down a little bit. Maybe they give that savings to you. Maybe they don't. Maybe they take an extra couple of bucks. Who knows?
Yep.
So you mentioned the barrel-aged gin being in a wheated barrel simply because you didn't like the rye notes. And at least obviously for the current time being, there's only a sourced bourbon or whiskey. Do you plan on having a rye, or is it just not in your wheelhouse? Which, I mean, I would completely understand. If
The rye?
Yeah.
No, we have rye that's aging right now.
Okay.
So our rye is 2.5 years old right now, and we won't release it until it's at least 4 years.
Okay, dope.
And it's what people call like Kentucky rye.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
That was my other question. Was
Right, so
if it was
it's
the higher content or the lower?
Yeah, it's the lower content. So we wanted, there's a lot of 95.5s out there. I mean, there's a lot of them. And there's some good 95.5, and I'm not saying there's not. But we didn't want to go for that profile. We really wanted a more approachable rye. So you'll see ours, 35% sort of corn content.
Thank you,
sort of area.
by the way, because I'm just a person. I have broken up with 95.5. I told 95.5 it's not them, it's me.
Uh-huh.
The mint and the wintergreen, just that pine sol air freshener thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like more of a Kentucky rye than a 95.5. So thank you very, very, very much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And those will be coming, the rye. So we'll have I'll shift back into that in a minute because we have to talk about the whole Monks Road lineup. But that rye will be coming in probably 2023, maybe 2024, as well as we've got a high rye bourbon as well that'll be coming in, and then a wheated bourbon that'll be coming at the end of this year.
I feel like we need to go back to this 5th District series. I want to apologize not only to our listeners, but to both of you. So Zeke and I probably haven't been in the same room together. I want to say it's been 3 to 4 weeks since we really had some quality time in a room. I think we danced around a little bit of stuff because we were busy giving each other a lot of shit because that's what we do. I mean, we had to play catch up.
Right.
Why do you blame me?
You were the instigator for a good 80% of the shit between you and I.
I don't think I've instigated anything tonight. Thank you.
It's just
I got 2 witnesses.
he has a look. Like he has a look. He doesn't even need to say anything, and it makes your blood boil, and then you have to go back to him. But I want to talk about this 5th District because this is not going to be the standard release that is going to come out from Log Still and Monks Road. This is a special release. This is your LTO for the Monks Road lineup, correct?
Correct.
And so this might be different right now it's a 6-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It could be something different next year. It's whatever y'all say is going to be the 5th District series for that year.
Yep, you got it.
And will it be one a year that will come out? Or is it something that there could be a spring and a fall release, or figuring that stuff out for now?
All of this 5th District series, and the reason we call it this whole 5th District series, one is to pay homage to the taxing 5th District, which is Central Kentucky's district. There are a number of older pre-Prohibition distilleries that never made it past Prohibition. And, from our location, there were like 11 distilleries within about 6 miles of, from a concentric circle perspective from our distillery. And so Cold Spring was one of those distilleries. It was started by a Dant, so Joseph Bernard Dant. We own the property that Cold Spring Distillery sits on. We actually are using the Cold Spring, that spring that's there, to do our barrel proofing and our bottling proofing water. So we've, set up a pumping system to where we can pump it up to our water treatment facility and then use it for that. So it's one of those cool little stories, again, that we're afforded because of where we are and the history that we have there. But the 5th District series was really set up because we knew we were going to have this source product. And we knew that there would likely be a number of them before we ever got to our aged product. That somebody's doing that for us. Some guys out of Danville, Kentucky are making our product for us right now. And so until we get to that point where we feel comfortable in releasing that, which won't be before 4 years of age, just so you'll know, we're not going to release anything early. We really feel our family's always been known for this bottled and bond 4-year-old, at least 4-year-old product. And so that's kind of what we're sticking to from a bourbon whiskey perspective, is really that 4-year-old Kentucky stuff.
And just for people that are listening, to put a little bit of clarification in there. So there's a difference between sourcing whiskey and then contract distilling. So the folks in Danville, they are contract distilling that for you. You've
Correct.
given them a mash bill you want. You've told them this is everything.
Right. Here's the yeast that we're wanting to use. Here are the barrels that we're wanting you to put it in. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a full contract distilling process.
And I say this because I've had some people reach out to us lately on Instagram, and we get into a lull and we talk to people like you, and everybody kind of knows what they're talking about. And I got a nice little reminder that sometimes I need to take a step back and explain some of this stuff to people. So sourcing is, the whiskey's already made, it's already aging in barrels. You just go out and say, hey, I'm going to go buy these barrels. Contract distilling, just like Wally said, you're giving them the recipe. Another way of putting this is Wally's kitchen isn't ready. He's building his kitchen, but he still needs to make the food. So he's given them the recipe of what he needs to make, and they're off making it for him until the oven can go in, the still can go in, the fermenter can go in, all that fun stuff.
Right.
Sorry, I just wanted to...
No, that's good. That's great explanation. So, yeah, I think we think every year we're going to come out with a limited series, and we explain maybe through a QR code or something like that, to where you can pop it on there and say, hey, okay, here's what's the story behind Cold Spring Distillery, or here's the story behind XYZ from that perspective. And so what we're trying to do is, one, give us some historical perspective and pay homage to some of those guys that have gone out before us, and then really try to give you an idea and a sense for what they were producing through that bottle.
I like it. This is a 6-year-old product right now. I'm assuming that this 5th District series right now is only something you could probably get at the distillery.
No.
You can actually get it in stores? Mm-hmm. Any in Nashville or more just up in Kentucky?
So as of today, right, it's Kentucky. I think, well, first of all, we are now, we're working with a number of distributors here in Tennessee. We're actually launching next week here in Tennessee. And so these bottles that you see in front of us, they may even be in stores today, depending on how the distributor's been working with the local retail stores here. Yeah, these will be available next week.
So DSP 47, is that The original?
That's the original distillery number. Okay. So the government gave us back our old DSP number after a little bit of work to get that. But yes, we are very proud to have our old number back. It's a damn low number. So
I saw that's when I caught my eye, and I was like, it's got to be the old number. But I knew from when Heaven Hill had it, and they kind of moved stuff around, like buying older bottles. And I can't remember the number. I always ask a buddy, but like whatever the old Bernheim was, like I was like, that's the Dant you want to get. That's the really damn good one. Don't buy the other number, because that means it was bottled somewhere else, but had the different DSP. But it's all just fun little trivial knowledge. But
there was a number of them. So prior to Heaven Hill's ownership of it, it was the Shenley plant. It was the Bernheim plant that was making it, and that and Frankfurt was making it, which was the old Buffalo Ancient Age plant.
Yeah,
those were the two that made the Dant bourbons back then. And so if you get anything from an age perspective that's anything less than 1993, then it's likely to be made at one of those two plants. Or if it's earlier than 62, then it was made at our plant, right? In number 47.
Gotcha. So are there more Dants or Beams in Kentucky?
There's the Beams are prolific family themselves. So
I feel like both are just synonymous.
It's funny. We've got Steve Beam and Paul Beam, really good friends of ours, actually cousins of ours. Her mother was a Dant. We're related through the same family tree on that side, and but we have another Beam that actually two Beams that work for us at the distilling company, and it's just. It's one of those businesses where you can talk to Freddie and all of those guys. And I mean, they're just a genuinely good family and a good group of folks and everybody's been really gracious in answering questions and providing information when we needed information.
Well, it's always remarkable to think of it like how big of a, following does bourbon or whiskey have now? And then if you look like the origins and where it all came down to, and like you said, the family tree, like how small was the populace to begin with? And then they still basically, corner the market, so to speak.
Well, and now they've taken over the Dant, like the Beams just multiplied and they infiltrated the Dant family.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, just funny to think perspective wise. Like, all right, so 100 years ago, this small subset, here's all your bourbon whiskey that's going to supply the world one day almost.
Oh, it's really, it is crazy when you kind of look back and you go, a lot of it came out of that central Kentucky area, and quite a few of them were, big Catholic families that made their way over. Basil Hayden, right, was the original kind of led the first mission from Maryland, over into what was then Western Virginia, which is Kentucky today. But he led that group over of Catholics, and we were the second group to come over with him. And in there was Mattingly, so Mattingly's and Moores, right? And then, of course, Basil Hayden. There's another name that was in it. I forget the other ones, but there was a number of them, prominent families that were all became distillers, right? Farmers first, and then distillers second, and then distillers first at some point.
We talked about, I think, obviously your preference in gin profiles. For now, the bourbon's sourced. As everything moves more forward, and obviously your own distillate come to market at some point, what do you lean toward or go forward in a bourbon profile, or where do you want the juice to end up, I guess?
I'm a high rye bourbon guy. I like to taste that spice in my bourbons. And it's generally speaking, that's a traditional Dant bourbon was a high rye bourbon. And while what is being done today, we've got our mash bills, right? The mash bills that are being done today aren't the same thing that we produced back in our plant back in DSP 47 or before. And so we know what those mash bills are. My great-grandfather kept meticulous notes and journals about his own mash bills for his own brands, and we know what the other one is. And so for us, to be able to kind of replicate that, because we've got the water source, right? So our lake we're using that for a distillate, which is what the old plant did. They use that lake water. God forbid it ever goes dry. Now, we do have a water backup in case that's the case. But, knock on wood, that's generally not going to be an issue. And then we know what the yeast was, and we know what the mash bill was. So we can replicate what was done there at the distillery. And, so we know the barrels. And really it's from there, it's okay, where in the rick house is going to produce the best barrels.
Yeah.
That'll be, again, the fun side of this whole thing, right? Is, people don't realize that, a lot of bourbons that are made today many of them are the same damn mash bill, right? The art is figuring out where in the warehouses produce the quote unquote premium, and where would you take the other stuff and say, we'll maybe use that for our bottom shelf.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously brands that been around for a while now and got famous off buying juice from possibly across the street.
Right.
But they might have had a little higher ground, might have had a little more air,
right.
Might have put in a little better of a corner and knew when to bottle it and how to do it.
Right.
And
that's right.
Now it's got a nice pretty price tag and shiny purple foil. But hell, they knew how to do it from that side.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, like I said, that's where the craft is.
Right.
I mean, obviously, you got to be able to distill it and make the product initially. But if you can't do the rest, you're going to be left with spoils.
That's right. That's right. No, that's right.
I think that there is a lot that we're going to have to come back, and this is not going to be the first time you come on this show. I think it's great. Not everybody is a Nelson's Greenbrier or a Kentucky Owl. Now we have a Log Still. And it's those stories that are very interesting to me, because I almost feel, there's some people that say these stories are really easy to make a brand. Because like Kavik said, hey, you have this story right here. You could go do it. But it's almost like, when your dad is an actor and then you want to go be an actor too. And then there's tremendous amount of pressure. Like, are you going to be as good of an actor as your dad?
Right.
Like, you're a Dant. I personally would feel like there is a lot of pressure when you have that backstory to actually go do something. Now, granted, thankfully, 80% of whiskey is marketing. So you have that story. You don't have to worry as much.
Right.
But, you want to do right by your family, and you want to pay homage to those people that came before you. So I know we wish you the best of luck. From what we've figured out tonight, we know you're on the right path. We like the stuff you have out now. People in Tennessee, look out. It's going to be in stores ASAP, because Adam did his job well.
He did, yeah.
And now he's going to be grinding all around the state, making sure people are selling them and pushing it out. And I'm sure you'll see him doing some tastings and getting people under him to do some tastings in that awesome Log Still Monks Road Jeep. So if you see a black Jeep running around Tennessee with the logos on it, that's Adam.
Adam or
Haley. We have our sales rep on board as well, who will work with me, and we'll sort of be divvying up the state. So
did she get a Jeep too?
She got a Jeep too.
A black Jeep.
She doesn't have the decals on it yet, but they're coming.
You have to understand, when I walk my dogs. Adam lives in my neighborhood. I walk my dogs by his house, and I saw this new black Jeep sitting there. I'm like, you got rid of the Tahoe? All of a sudden, the logos went on. And I'm like, man, I had to apply for a job there if everybody's getting a sweet Jeep.
Yeah, sweet Jeep.
Thank you, Wally.
I thought you were going to segue into the fact we have numerous friends that always ask, like, when's Edwards going to get a wrap on that truck of his? We feel like every 3 months he get a new wrap. Who's the next sponsor?
I tell people, as the son of a cop, I'm not putting Dad's Drinking Bourbon on. It is a recipe to get pulled over to have Dad's Drinking Bourbon on your truck.
Maybe.
I'm just saying. But Wally, thank you so much for coming. Adam, I'm sure we'll see you like 18 more times.
Unfortunately, you're stuck with me.
We love you. We look forward to all the good stuff happening at Log Still. Zeke, can you say oyster for me one more time?
Oyster?
Yeah, thank you.
There's an extra letter or two in there.
It's kind of like Worcestershire.
That's right.
Where can they find you? I know, Wally, you are on Instagram. I know there's Dant Crossing on Instagram, which is the whole campus.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Log Still.
Right, Log Still Distillery.
And then Monks Road, I think, has its own.
It's on Instagram. Yep.
Lots of stuff on the grams. You can find us on Facebook at Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Twitter, Bourbon Dads, Instagram at Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Please leave us an open, honest review, just like we leave open, honest reviews about the whiskey we drink. We thank you folks again. And we can't wait to see all the good stuff happening at Log Still. We want to come up and go to a concert. We'll come up and go to the B&B. I can't wait to go to the ice cream shop when it opens.
Jesus.
Zeke, where else could
We've got an investment opportunity for you.
He's going to get that wrap for the truck one day. It's just going to be ice cream, not Dad's drinking bourbon.
It'll be Log Still Creamery is what I'm going to be putting on there. Zeke, where else could the folks find us?
Good old Nashville, Tennessee. Hopefully not seeing an orthopedist anytime soon.
Cheers.
Ciao.